Hello, Carla. I hope this isn't going to be a repeat of your last visit.
No. Thanks for seeing me. May I sit down?
Of course. Please. Are you here for a medical problem?
No. I came to see if I can get this mess between you and Jean straightened out.
I see.
Then I'm just going to, come on out and say this. No matter what Jean thinks, I've known you for a long time, and I can't believe that you would deliberately tell Vanessa Fazan that Jean was a reporter. Or more directly, I won't believe it until you tell me.
Send him in. Right. Well, if it isn't the hopeless case come to call.
May I sit down?
Certainly, certainly. I would never refuse a seat to a congressman, no matter how temporary. Well, this is quite a surprise. I'm sure, though, that you didn't drop by so that I could point out to you the sorry state of your non-campaign.
Wrong. That's exactly why I'm here. I overheard you tell Preston that I could use a pointer or two on strategy. Would you care to give them to me?
You're joking.
I wish I were. The fact is, I do need a campaign manager. I'm willing to let you prove that you can spout something besides hot air.
If this thing's done right, it's the kind of thing that can really impress Judge Sawyer. And don't be afraid to explain your sorrow, your regret over the way you treated her before you got married. You change your heart that you had. And the fact that you kept this affair from Courtney for her own good.
Boy, I hope I'm up to this.
You better be. It's a bad time to be having second thoughts.
Look, I'm not having second thoughts. These are deeply personal things we're talking about.
What in the world could be more personal than talking about impotence? And you've certainly been able to do that all along. Well?
Look, I'm talking about sharing my feelings. I don't mind talking to you about them, but to all those other people, and Dan Myers, who's just sitting there waiting to make fun of them.
All right, I hear you. But don't you understand, Vaughn, this is the very reason why you should go ahead and do it. You need to let Judge Sawyer see that you can stand up under abuse. Now, I hope Dan Myers does stare into you, so you'll have a chance to stand up to him. That'll do a whole lot more for you in Sawyer's eyes than I could ever do. Vaughn, you toughen yourself up for that.
All right, and I ask you again, do you think I have a good chance?
I'll make you this promise. I get the very best shot I can.
So you want me to be your campaign manager? Oh, I'll tell you, I'd rather manage my grandmother in a fight against Larry Holmes.
If I may continue.
Sure, continue, please. This is too much fun to have you stop now.
You haven't considered the advantages. Well, first, the obvious. A very generous salary.
Aha. How generous?
You haven't been offered the job.
Not yet. Please, continue.
Well, then there's the education and media, the development of contacts, politically and in business, the contact with power and money. And Dan, that means there are favors to be won.
May I quote you on that last benefit?
Hardly. But it is a certainty. It's the way the system works. Once on board, you are set for life.
That is, if you win. And if you'll forgive me, that is a possibility which at this time hardly seems worth considering.
Win or lose, you would only gain. Now, if I lose, you still have your contacts. Your newly found rich and powerful friends. And if I win, there's no limit. Now, you said you had some ideas. Let's hear them.
Well, the kind of strategy I have in mind is not exactly the kind that gets written down on paper, if you know what I mean.
You mean like your relationship with Preston's daughter?
Now, what is that supposed to mean?
Well, let's just put it this way. Daddy, like daddies all the world over, thinks this kind of thing is all on the up and up. Strictly professional between you and Courtney. That's one little piece of absurdity I'd never fall for.
And just how did you come up with this remarkable piece of intuition?
Let's just call it a hunch.
Well, I'm sorry, the old boy, but that just won't fly. It was a nice try. But frankly, I expect a little more than a pathetic attempt at blackmail from a congressman. But of course, we both know what kind of congressman we're dealing with here, don't we?
I think we've had about enough of that.
I agree. And I've had enough of this Courtney blackmail attempt. By the way, though, just for the record, our relationship hasn't gone nearly as far as you fantasized it.
Oh, no blackmail was intended. The fact is, I have some information on Courtney Sumner that I think you could use for private consideration, of course.
Man, you really do need a manager, don't you?
I just thought you needed to know that this partnership could be beneficial to both of us.
Well, all right, let's hear a little bit more about my benefits. Now, what exactly have you got on Courtney?
Dan, I'm sorry. I'm late. I know. Oh, hello.
Yes, Courtney, I'd like to introduce you to Congressman Lee Carruthers.
Yes, we've met, Congressman.
Mrs. Sumner?
Dan, I'll wait in the
Oh,
lobby.
no, that's all right. We really do have to be going. May we drop you somewhere, Congressman? We're right on our way to the courthouse.
No, thank you. I have another appointment next door. But I'm sure I'll be hearing from you. Mrs. Sumner?
Mr. Carruthers?
Let me get this straight. Gene thinks I blew his cover? Why?
Well, at first you refused to give him an interview after Mrs. Gilbert's death.
Now, Gene
Then
had no reason for getting angry over that. Carla, there was a complete investigation by John Brubaker. I was cleared of all charges. Now, I think Gene would have every reason in the world to trust John Brubaker. And me too, for that matter.
Gene said you were so defensive.
Of course I was defensive. What do you expect? Gene came in here rehashing all these old stories, digging up issues that should have been done and buried a long time ago. You see, Carla, I really think the Chronicle has a personal vendetta against the Bedford. And I'm not a big fan of yellow journalism.
Well, just what did you and Vanessa talk about privately?
I rescheduled a luncheon date.
And do you realize that after you left, she turned on Gene and called him by his real name?
I had nothing to do with that.
And yet she knew.
Not from anything I said.
You know, I hate asking this, but, is there something going on between you and Vanessa?
No. I can imagine what Gene's thinking by now, but my association with Vanessa Bazan is purely professional. All right, I admit, I find the woman fascinating, but only from a distance.
Okay. I believe you. And I'll try and convey this to Jean. You know, I think it's a real tragedy when a friendship is broken.
Yes, it is. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for seeing me. Take care.
Well, gentlemen, a highly irregular case here. Now, I'm certain that all three of us recognize the obvious. The plaintiff could certainly make this a very easy matter. She could simply sue for divorce, since the respondent quite obviously led her into the marriage under false circumstances. Mr. Myers, did you advise her that she could probably obtain some sort of settlement from all of this?
Oh, yes, sir, I certainly did. But Courtney Sumner is a very moral young woman, Your Honor, deeply opposed to divorce. Sir, please understand, Courtney's only desire in this situation is to clear the air and to dissolve a marriage which should never have happened in the first place. She was deeply deceived by a conniving husband. She simply wants to close the book on a very painful part of her life. And that, Your Honor, is why she opted for annulment. And after I heard the story from this pathetically hurt young woman, I could do nothing but agree with her decision.
Very well. Are you ready then with your opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you very much. As I have already pointed out, Your Honor, Courtney Sumner is a very moral young lady. In addition to a set of high moral standards, she has a very giving heart and an extremely loyal nature. This is a young woman who was willing to sacrifice herself for the mother that she loved. Now, I don't think there can be any denying that the plaintiff clearly saw her marriage to the respondent as a way to save her mother's life. Such is the idealism of Courtney Sumner. Your Honor, it is this same idealism which now asks this court to dissolve her marriage and let her go on living. Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Webster. Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Well, I certainly never claimed to be the poet that my colleague is here. And I must admit, it all sounded very touching. However, this court was convened for the purpose, as I see it, of determining whether or not Vaughn Sumner was impotent. We're not here to examine the idealism of the plaintiff, or anybody else for that matter. If that were the case, I assure you, Your Honor, that I could recite volumes of truly touching testimony that scenes that happened between myself and the respondent.
Please don't.
However, that is not the case. Impotence is. For it is on this alleged circumstance that my colleague here is building his entire case for the annulment. It's on this question that the case rests. Nothing else. Not on altruism, not on unrequited love, and certainly, Your Honor, not on the honeymoon disappointments of a very naive young woman.
It's horrible, Doctor. I don't think that I've had a good night's sleep in 3 months.
Well, Mrs. Randolph, if you had to identify the source of your problem, could you tell me what it was?
But I couldn't. I mean, haven't you been listening to me?
Yes. But I think if you thought about it real hard, you'd come up with the right answer. You see, I think you know the source of your problem. You're just reluctant to face it.
That's very judgmental, Dr. Martin.
Well, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to be.
Well, you see, the problem is my ex-husband. You see, if he would just stop harassing me, I'd be fine.
No, I think the situation with your ex-husband is merely a symptom of your real problem.
Are you a psychiatrist?
No, I'm not.
Well, then I suggest that you leave my personal life out of this discussion.
I am a physician, Mrs. Randolph, and oftentimes emotional problems can produce physical symptoms that are not picked up.
I don't like the direction that this conversation is taking. Now, I have asked you if you will give me a tranquilizer. Now, will you or will you not give it to me?
No. At least not until I've given you a thorough examination. And even then, I'll only give it to you if I'm convinced that it's absolutely necessary. I sympathize with your list of complaints, but a tranquilizer isn't necessarily the answer. In fact, I think your hay fever probably has more to do with your headaches and your dizziness than this general anxiety you've been discussing. Also, I'm going to say something that may make you a little uncomfortable. But regardless of the results of this examination, I want you to see a therapist here at the Institute. Mrs. Randolph, I really do believe it's for your own good. Now, my examination room is right down the hallway, so if you'll come with me, please.
Is this really necessary?
Yes, it is. Now, who did you say your other doctors were?
I didn't. None. I had none.
None?
No.
And how long have you lived in Kingsley?
Dr. Martin, I told you I don't have any other doctors.
Please.
Hello, everyone.
Well, hello, young lady.
Nancy?
Is that her?
She's in there, Babs.
Oh, Nancy. What is it now?
You'll find out.
Apparently you haven't checked your calendar lately. And what is that supposed to mean? Oh, now don't tell me that Domi has erased your memory cells.
Babs, you'd be surprised at what Domi's done for my mind.
Yes, I'm sure. But anyway, we have an agreement, remember? You, not me, and not Ione or Carla, but you, Nancy Lawson, does dishes on Tuesday. And today, believe it or not, is Tuesday.
No.
What do you mean, no?
I think it's fairly self-explanatory.
Hey, wait a minute. Who do you think you are?
I said no, Babs. Let's get something straight. We need to talk about something. You will do the dishes, Babs, and not I.
So you're saying that every time you tried to consummate your marriage, you remained sympathetic?
Yes, always.
Uh-huh. Now, did you ever show anger toward Vaughn? I mean, did you ever let loose all those frustrations in a hurtful way?
Never, no. No, I was very patient with him. I never tried to put him down.
What effect did all this have on you, Courtney?
It was very difficult, especially on our honeymoon. Well, after all, he lied to me, and it was our wedding night. I had certain expectations. I had certain rights. But I gave him every chance that I could.
Good. Thank you, Courtney.
Mr. Webster? Thank you, Your Honor. Mrs. Sumner, in your original petition for this hearing, you stated that you are a virgin. Is that still the case?
Why, yes. Yes.
In other words, your romantic experience, your direct sexual experience is, to say the least, somewhat limited.
I guess so.
You guess so? What is there to guess about? I mean, either you are sexually experienced or you're not. Are you sexually experienced?
No.
Thank you. Now, back in high school, in addition to your other studies and reading material and so forth, did you have any particular reading interests?
Like what?
Like romance novels?
Objection, Your Honor. The counsel is leading the witness.
To be perfectly fair, Your Honor, she did ask me to clarify the question.
You should have asked a more specific question to begin with, Mr. Webster.
Yes, sir.
Objection sustained.
Miss Sumner, are you a fan of romance novels?
Yes. Is that so unusual?
That's not for me to say. Are you particularly fond of this particular kind of reading?
Yes, but I really don't
Yes
see
or no
what
will be fine. Thank you. Now, since you've been in Kingsley, have you had any particular friends, special male friends, before and at the time of and since you were married?
No, absolutely not.
Really? Well, I wonder if you would please clarify for the court your relationship this past winter with Peter Davidson.
I said you will do the dishes, Babs. Ione didn't take us under her roof to live out some silly little schedule. At times, our responsibilities are going to overlap, and I think you're being petty, and I want it to stop right now.
Something wrong, Babs?
Babs, what are you doing?
I'm doing the dishes. Don't ask me why, but I'm doing the dishes.
What other tests could you possibly take?
I want to do a fasting blood sugar, CAT scan, and an upper GI
Well, can't
series.
that wait?
No, I'm afraid that it can't wait.
Look, I don't want to stay here overnight.
Mrs. Randolph, I don't intend to keep fighting you on this. Now, if you're not happy with me, you can find another physician.
No, I couldn't.
You wouldn't be offending me, believe me.
No, you're supposed to be my doctor.
Supposed to be? What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, well, it's sort of hard to explain. Look, please forgive me, Dr. Martin. I trust you. And I won't argue with you anymore, I promise.
Good. Then I'll call admitting and make all the arrangements.
Thank you.